us begin. Call to order. How about invocation? All right. Heavenly Father, we give thanks for your blessings that you have displayed upon us and upon the authority in its growth years. We ask for your assistance as we, the board, provide guidance to the administration. Amen. Yeah, short and sweet. Not much going with me and God today.
Pledge allegiance to
the
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There was a woman that used to be on the CAC at one time, and she always said there was no comma between one nation and under God.
So you shouldn't pause, right?
Right, it's one nation under God, indivisible. So, I've never checked, but that's what she said, and I believe her. That's the kind of person she was. She'd know it.
But everybody
Yeah,
always pauses there.
Yeah.
For the,
All right, let's do a roll call.
Catherine D'Angelo. Heather Edwards. Here. Daryl Eichhoff.
Here.
Willie Jean Johnson. Marvin King.
Here.
Joseph Lazara.
Here.
Rob Sheehan.
Here.
Bernard Silverman.
Here.
Brenda Wallace. Ivory Wilson.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, will you have a quorum?
Great.
Barely, but
I
we
don't
did.
see any visitors. I see an employee, but no visitors. So we will push on employee recognition. Oh, we have no public comment, as we have no public. All right. How about employee recognition?
I just wanted to introduce Jay Smith, our deputy transportation manager. He's working for Doug.
Okay.
He has been pressed with, first of all, he's drinking from a fire hose for the first 2 weeks, but doing a pretty good job taking over some of the things that Mr. Glover was doing. Taking over or trying to shore up our training and safety program. Jay is a former police officer, not a cop, police officer with Horry County. And before that, in what town in Pennsylvania?
Newberry Township, right outside of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Yes, we're in central Pennsylvania.
I didn't realize there was a difference between a cop and a police officer.
Well,
They're all short.
cop has
It's a
sort of got
respect
that
thing,
onomatopoeia that
right?
is kind of derogatory.
Okay.
So they're officers from now on.
First responders, how about that?
Yes, that's it. So welcome, Jay. I'm really looking forward to really formalizing our training programs. He's already kind of taken the ball with live shooter, so we're going to get that training in here shortly. And we are trying to implement some cross training on routes so that we have a little bit more flexibility with drivers, so that they know more routes than just their primary route that they're riding or driving. So a lot of it's going to take a lot of organizational skills here on the part of this gentleman. And of course, in this first week, we have a pretty major accident, and he's done pretty well getting the insurance squared away. We're dealing with the other party's insurance, and so he's had to jump right in.
Was the other party harmed, the one who hit us?
I don't think the trucker had too many. If there were minor injuries,
Okay.
but their insurance has stepped up pretty quickly. So we'll see how it goes.
Great. Okay.
And what is drinking from the fire hose? Is that very busy? Is that?
Well, just a lot of information.
If you're gonna go to a water bubble, you're gonna drink water, it's real different if you drink from a fire hose.
Yeah.
I think they were drinking from a fire hose.
it's
Pressure.
right.
I get a lot.
So it's a lot of intake, and Jay's doing a good job with it. So, Jay, you want to say anything?
Just, I want to thank the board for welcoming me to this meeting, and to thank the authority for welcoming me to the position I have. Like Brian said, I have a 29-year law enforcement career. Most of that was actually spent in accident investigation, accident reconstruction, commercial motor vehicle accident reconstruction, and I did roadside inspections of commercial motor vehicles, safety inspections for a lot of years. So I have the knowledge of commercial motor vehicles, the safety aspect of them, and the transportation industry itself is new to me, but I've never failed at any job I've ever held, and I don't intend to fail at this one either. I anticipate helping my employer out tremendously and making it easier for them to run the daily operations here.
Well, we're glad to have you here.
Well said, Jay.
Yeah.
Well said, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have a suggested change to the agenda. We're going to pull the bylaws from the consent agenda and instead move it down to item 13 under the approval of the resolutions.
So you need a motion for that?
Do we have a motion to approve that change to the agenda?
So move.
Second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Hey, man.
Okay. Randall, we welcome you to our meeting. Glad you made it. We are just up to approving the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the March board meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Any suggested edits to those minutes? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to the consent agenda, we have moved, Randall, we've moved the change to the bylaws off of the consent agenda. Daryl had some questions about that, and they're being moved down to item number 13, the approval of the resolutions. So we have acceptance of the FY18 final audit report, which did receive consensus of those who were here from the Finance Committee last week. And then we also have approval of the revised drug and alcohol policy. Ms. Lynette, would you be willing to read those to us?
Absolutely. Waccamaw Regional Transportation Authority, Resolution Number April 2019-07, approval of the revised drug and alcohol policy.
And do we have any questions about the policy or any explanation of that if necessary? Ryan, would you tell us a little bit about what was changed?
Everything
They were
was
very
highlighted,
easy to
yeah.
read with the highlight, really. I
Right.
appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, it was changing the word opioids to opiates. Apparently, all opioids are opiates, and not all opiates are opioids. So, we're just correcting the language there.
Okay.
We have some changes in the random testing. Essentially, I think everybody will be tested more often, it looked like to me. And then there was just some
Almost double, that's 25 to 50%.
yeah, some ruling on, I mean, apparently there's been an issue with people trying to get out of their drug test by not being able to give enough of a sample.
It's pretty clear how that's handled, though, isn't it?
So, even making you chug 40 ounces of water, so
I have to go for mine tomorrow.
pretty simple, you know?
Come back part-time.
There you go.
There was a direct observation after a while. You always have the fear of they lose a sample, it's very well. But then, after a certain while, there can be a direct observation, which is suspected. Did that happen in this fact? Where did we do that?
Oh, good, we go to offset facility.
Went down there on,
Doctor's care.
Yeah.
No,
Right
we
on.
don't go to
We're
doctor's
not
care anymore.
Okay.
Houston?
yeah, down by, actually East Coxbury Road.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Good thing you're doing that.
Yeah, it is.
Well,
Well, Pam wouldn't send me to the wrong place.
Any other questions about the drug and alcohol policy? All those in favor? Oh,
I
go
have a
ahead.
question really quick, this is Heather.
Go ahead, Heather.
So I saw that under the, random testing, that was mandated by the FTA, but as far as the side bladder goes, is that something regulated by the FTA as well, or is that something that you just felt, as a company, you have dealt with that too often and wanted to fix that problem within the company?
What was the question?
The question was, is the shy bladder also mandated by the FTA in the same way that the incidence of random testing has been mandated by the FTA?
I don't think any of this is truly mandated by the FDA. They're asking us to follow DOT rules. So,
Okay, okay.
so the mandate from FDA is change your policy to match DOT rules. So these are all three of these are coming down from DOT.
And that's to match the South Carolina DOT, isn't it?
I think they're federal.
Okay.
The CDL is a federal license, so.
Okay,
Okay, perfect, thank you.
all right. Could I have a motion to accept the,
So moved.
I move we accept
So
the
moved.
of revised
Resolution.
drug and alcohol policy.
all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I,
Opposed? All right, we now move to our second consent agenda. Well, I guess, no, we're,
You should have approved both
Oh,
of
yeah,
them.
right.
that's,
Consent,
let's
please.
hold on that vote that we just had. How about the final audit report? This was passed out to us last week. Do we have any questions about the audit? Other than it's a perfect audit, and that feels good for.
Everything worked out all right with the audit? I'm sorry, I wasn't able to be here for the meeting, and
Yeah, no findings, no comments, and the really good news is that we moved to a low-risk auditee. So it
Wonderful.
means they have
And it's less
fewer
expensive.
things to do when they do their on-site
And we
reviews.
save $15,000 for
Roughly.
Well,
So-
thank you, congratulations.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good news, yep.
what was the reason for the savings, or what was it?
Because they don't have to do as much testing.
We're low risk now.
By being low risk, they
2 years
don't
in a
have
row.
to dig as deep. So, and we got low risk because we've had 3 years in a row of no repeat
Very
findings.
good, very good.
So that's,
All right. Do I
Sounds
have a
great.
motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the consent agenda passes with 2 items. We did not have a service PAC committee report. We had a failure of a quorum. And it was the Easter week and people were just simply going different directions. And I will put in the meeting minutes that I was at fault for failing to get out the letter to Georgetown asking for reappointment of Ms. Lily Jean. That letter has since been sent, and we have received Georgetown's appointment, have we not?
No, her message to you, the email
Said it
that you
was-
showed me,
Yep.
said that they would do a letter and get
Okay.
it out to
All right,
us.
we've not received it
She
yet.
spoke to the council chair last night, and they will get that to us.
Well, that was a week ago,
Mhm.
not last night.
And we had sent a letter to them last year, and they never responded.
Okay. All right. All other letters that we are aware of that need to be sent have been sent, including a letter to the city regarding Mickey's position.
Brian has that one on his desk for you to sign.
Okay. And Brian, have you discussed that with the city?
I haven't really talked to anybody about it yet, but I will.
Okay. All right. So I'll take responsibility for messing that one up.
Did Mickey resign in writing or is it all verbal?
Thus far verbal, but he did indicate that he would be sending in something in writing. We have not yet seen it.
I'd like,
And
at a minimum, if he doesn't send it, I'd like to have a written memo for file. He's communicated his desire to get off.
Well, that is what the letter that is on Brian's desk in fact says.
Perfect.
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay.
I got 2 quick questions for Kathleen that didn't happen. One, whatever happened with the Bucksport meeting and the route diversion, and did we ever go ahead and do Laura's meetings?
can I cover that in the GM report?
Yeah, and one other question about the bus stop signs on Route 10. What are we doing to tell people that these signs are in place and that we're, our effort is to stop there and not, everywhere else?
GM report.
Got it, great.
I'll cover all the things I wanted to cover in service pack and GM report.
Great.
And Bernie's initial question about Loris and Bucksport is moving those from special routes into regular routes. And it was necessary to have public discussion of that before that could be done, as I understood it. So-
Right.
All right, we'll cover those in the GM report.
No, good, no, good, that's good, that's great.
I'm not letting anybody steal my thunder.
Not today.
Finance
We
committee
totally
report.
jacked the consent agenda.
Jay
on
looks
to the
Jay looks a
finance
little bit
committee
too much
report.
like Tom Berta.
Yeah, we got a few of those in the house now.
Yeah.
All right, so finance?
Yes, sir.
Okay, So, finance was pretty straightforward. I guess we had 3 items. One of them, the budget was still baking, so we're still working through that, and I guess we'll get that at a future meeting. The audit, as we said, was, squeaky clean, so that was great, and we go through. We did talk a little bit about March financials, so a lot of the things that we've seen year to date are still there, and we're balancing some of that off, mainly things like salaries and the hit on revenues from the hurricane, and a few things like the telephone drop piece off. But, Mr. Brian, do you want
I have
to dig
a
into any?
question. I do, the operating revenue side of that.
Yeah,
Last month, we know what Florence did this back in October.
that's right.
Last month, we said, because of Florence, but we're getting back on track. It was 9.7% below in February's report. We're still at 9.7, so we're probably never gonna make that up, right?
We're not gonna make that for September.
Okay.
And I have some more information in the GM report about what we're doing on fares.
Good, thank you.
But it is something that we're keeping an eye on.
Okay, thanks. That's it, thank you.
And I think the budget revision will fix a lot of these red numbers, for the most part.
So we're gonna
But
do-
it should be, oh yeah, we will, it'll be next month. I'm shooting for a 0 budget.
We can give you a 0 budget if that's really.
Well, I mean, zero change to overall budget. So,
Anybody else need to see these spreadsheets? I can turn the light back on whenever you're ready.
yeah, unless there's specific information or specific questions, I don't really have anything more to say about than what we talked about at finance.
Well, there's one update that's happened in the national media, which is the oil price. Fuel and oil price looks like it's gonna continue to rise with the latest federal issues. So you might wanna take a second look at that before you lock it into next month's budget.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Fuel and oil are expected
Yes.
to continue to rise. And the latest federal issue with regard to Iran basically means that nobody can do any business with Iran without receiving punishment from the United States, which cuts off all of Iran's oil exports. And those are a large enough amount that it is likely to spike our fuel prices.
And we've seen it a little bit. I don't know if that was the cause, but we have seen a little spike.
That was not the cause, because that had not happened.
Second
until a couple
of
days
May
ago.
that kicks in, and India and China were two of the big, India I'd worry about, China would probably blow us off. But I'm with you, I read that and I said, oh my God.
So we have, we're 17,000 under budget right now, and I won't mess with that.
Oh my gosh, no.
We'll keep that in there. I mean, I'll try to take a look at, what the projections are, and if we need to put some more.
Right, see if you can find another percent.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
$75 a barrel, isn't it?
Yep.
Hey, in Chicago, it's quite high.
Yeah, right.
3.29 for regular gas.
Where was that?
3.29 for regular gas, a gallon. Now, and if you buy, what was it, diesel, or propane, whatever, one other item, was only 288.
No.
It's unbelievable, which could usually be a lot higher.
The only other thing here, I think it was just the cash requirements and
I did say that.
still in there. So, I remember, was it about June?
We've got June covered, I think,
June is okay?
it's July, right before, July, June 30th. And Ron and I are watching it, and, we have a couple of opportunity, or a couple of avenues to resolve that issue.
And there was
So
the
I'm
grant
not too
revenue
worried about
coming, with exhausted rural, and I put words in there, we resubmitted, so in July.
So we have an
Is that a
amendment.
guarantee, or we're waiting, they have to, is that 100% certain it's gonna happen?
It's
Is there one more?
100% that it's gonna happen, it's not 100% that it's gonna happen in time.
Yeah,
So
the
we're
other
doing
one was
everything in our
pulled out.
power to get
Okay.
the additional funding into that grant that we can. It's,
When's the drop dead for us to submit that, Brian?
drop dead for us to submit it. There's, I
The
mean,
revision?
I don't really have, I mean, it's going in this week.
Okay,
So we have our give and take with the planner at FTA. So when it actually goes in for review is dependent on how her review goes. It's a 30 to 45 day process, so it needs to happen before May 1st in order to get the money in time.
and Ron, do you have any comment on either grant money or the financials? I don't want to leave you out of this conversation.
The only comment I have, I just echo what Brian said, we need to get the 5307, either an additional request for operating fund, you know, maybe through the end of September 2020, or just move some of the PM money we have over to operations to that 5307 grant.
Is that,
Then we get those approved in time, then we should be in good shape, especially in the future, I would think, from a cash flow standpoint. So it's probably the most critical thing going on in terms of grants. All the rest of them are just, you know, small capital grants, things like that, that are in progress right now that are, you know, moving along pretty nicely. So I think we're in good shape as long as we get the 5207 application in, like Brian said, by May 1st, we should be good.
there was some discussion that that was either a grant revision or a new grant. Have you determined which of those it's going to be?
I think we're still kicking that around. Did you decide, Brian, what time
Yeah,
you
no.
want to play that?
I mean, FTA is gonna weigh in on that.
Oh, okay.
But, I have a meeting with them on Thursday, a phone call with them on Thursday, to get their coaching on how to navigate through this. And we have a number of other grants that we need to get rolling as well that I'll talk about in the January
Okay.
report.
All right.
So, but, you know, that's kind of where we're at. It's, we're 15 days short of getting to the next Horry County payment. So we just need to work on conserving cash and
It's at the
get
July
these grants
payment?
for the July payment.
July payment, okay.
So,
Yeah,
it's not too bad. I mean, we got through June pretty good, so.
It's just difficult to hold that $500,000 receivable at the end of the third month of the registration fees, and that's what that 5307, having that as a fallback would be huge, so.
So Ron, you wanna mention, I know Marvin asked about the, current and quick ratios.
Yeah, I guess real quick, they took a slight dip in March, and the reason was when the accounts payable clerk left at the end of February, we paid everything out on her last day, so accounts payable was relatively low, and our cash position was still high from receiving the registration fees in mid-January. And then by the end of March, we still did not have money in place yet, so nobody, I mean, cash processed some emergency payables, but basically the payable balance still up. Throughout the month of March, it was $200,000 higher because there was no one in place to process them. So Marty came in early April, and we since got checks, you know, to the tune of $150,000 or so last week to get the payables up. So that's what caused the current ratio to dip, was the payables were up $200,000 over February, and cash dropped a little bit because there were two payables without any registration fees. So we're at 1.99, and 2.0 is considered healthy, so we're fine. And it's just, I think February was unrealistically high, and now we're back down where we should be.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else on finance?
No,
Brian?
I think we're good.
No? Before we jump to GM report, let me just acknowledge the public has arrived. Charles Perry is here. Let me also acknowledge that he is the recipient of more than one award from the family of Horry Independent newspapers. And this was a prestigious enough set of awards that I think that I'd like to have that be included in the minutes, that we sort of recognize the professionalism that he brings to this job as a reporter with and for us. So thank you very much.
Congratulations, man.
It's like being the tallest Smurf.
For somebody who wins these awards, he's an awfully quiet person in the back of the room, I gotta tell you that. All right, moving on to the general manager's report.
Okay, so I've got the slideshow going. Hopefully everybody on the phone can see this. I'm just gonna go through a few things that are happening. We've got a bus stop update. I'll give you some information about that. I kind of threw ridership, fare box, and paratransit all into one topic. We got a State of the Coast meeting coming up. We actually missed first quarter of this year, but we'll get one. It's happening here at the end of the month and 1st of May. I want to talk to you a little bit about where we stand on the fleet, including some work that was required by FTA called Transit Asset Management System, which was fun. I'm being facetious. But it was a good tool to kind of lay out sort of how bad things are. But they're still a lot better than where they used to be. And I do have some information on compensation plan, but it's pretty new and we may want to reserve it for a finance committee. But if you want to talk about it, we can go into an executive session.
I'd like to see it go first to finance committee.
Yeah, I kind of put it on there and then I'm like, well, maybe, I think that's a better way to do it. So I'll have that for you guys at first.
We also have 2 items under old business that if you want to mention, you can as well. We'll give you the flexibility agenda-wise, succession planning and business continuity. Those are 2 separate things, and we've had some discussions about how we want to organize our approach to those 2.
Okay. So bus stop update, we're almost complete with Route 10. I know that we got approval from the mall for that sign to go up. All of the city signs were put up, all the signs that are on city roads were put up several weeks ago. And we've gotten through the process with SCDOT to put up the rest of the signs. So it's a total of 39 signs, I think. The 40th is the sign that's basically on 501 at the Seaboard Street intersection. And we've got some more work to do with SCDOT before they're gonna let us put a sign up at that location. And it turned into really a broader conversation about their U.S. highways in general. They're not real keen on us stopping out there. Obviously, our guidelines say 45 miles an hour or lower.
What is the speed limit there?
It's inside the bypass. It goes down to 45, so it should be fine. And well, I don't want to get into all of the issues they have with it. I don't agree with all of them, but needless to say, that's still a work in progress. But
Are those our guidelines, or are those guidelines we have adopted when the authority was established?
This was that first product from the AECom work, was a set of guidelines on where we want to go with stop locations, when we're adding furniture, what is the process for moving, adding, deleting stops, all that stuff is in there. And South Carolina DOT was, given a copy of that way back when.
So the next closest sign already in is over at Home Depot, which is a left-hand turn 1 block down, right?
Well,
Yeah,
but that's on the outbound side. This is on the inbound side. So,
We're on side for our bus.
right. So I think we're probably still. I think we're still going to stop there for the time being. Just won't have a sign.
Can we turn that corner and stop on Seaboard?
We could do that.
Pretty close.
And that was something that they mentioned. But the problem is there's no element of crossing. There's no pedestrian facilities whatsoever. And so there's
They're on the
more
right side of the
to
road,
the story on that stop.
Yeah.
But
And that would be a number 7 stop too.
yes, it would. Which we informed them that we have other buses stopping there.
Yeah.
But it raised a larger discussion about, what are we gonna do on Kings Highway? You have basically the same situation, and I've got, 50, 60 stops out there that I wanna put up. And they were less concerned about Kings Highway, I guess, for a number of reasons. One, it's 3 lanes in a lot of areas.
Yeah.
And
Want to change it to 2 and lower the speed limit.
yeah, well, that works for us. That'd be fine. And it has sidewalks, which 501 doesn't have. So that kind of triggered in my brain that we need to move up 15 north and 15 south and strike while the iron's hot with SCDOT and get those signs up. So This afternoon, we have AECom will be here to kind of review these locations one last time before we send them to the city and to SCDOT. I know that the Bike and Ped Committee at the city is interested in these, so we'll let them have a run at them as well.
I think we can see that.
So we'll just move forward on that. Anyone who wants to stick around this afternoon or come back is welcome to come back and check them out. They have been tweaked and, you know, have
What time does that start?
starts at 1.
At 1,
Hopefully everybody saw the improvements out front.
Yeah, that's good.
Looks good, and the city came by and repaved out there, so until the next time, when those buses are so heavy, they're beating up the street, but it's in pretty good shape out there right now, and that we just incorporated into the AECom contract, so they came out and did that. And that rubberized mulch seems to be working.
Didn't wash away like I thought it might.
Yeah, it's holding up pretty well. We'll see how, we'll see what it looks like in a year.
Do you want to get to Bernie's question relative to bus stop, how we're letting people
Yeah,
know?
this is something that will be part of the State of the Coast. We're gonna speak internally about how we're gonna deal with it. I don't think we really can change over to a bus stop only system until they're all implemented. So I gotta ask for the drivers to kind of use their own judgment. Certainly, we need to start telling people, look, if there's a stop close by, please wait there for the bus. Until we kind of get a better, higher density of stops out there. One of the main items for the State of the Coast is because I've had drivers who are sort of, having a different story out there. So we're gonna try to make that message as consistent as possible.
Do you want to try putting that message on a postcard or something that gets passed out over a period of time as people are getting on? It's not quite so dependent upon the personality of the driver.
Yeah, but I think we do better with signs, putting signs up in the buses and at the transit facilities.
Signs on the buses are good because those are the people.
That would be
who are
fine.
getting off and on.
Yeah. We'll put something out there to that effect and try to develop an operating procedure so that, passengers are not
Can you write down that as a pass?
confused.
I think people will like it
Signs on
once
buses,
they get it.
signage.
Well, I think the sign ought to have a lot of information on it, like why we're doing it, what kind of improvements it'll make for the system, and why we need their cooperation, but
You'll never
think
get all
as
that
we've
on a
talked-
sign.
well, yeah.
But that's why I was thinking of the postcard, but maybe a combination. Somehow we've got to get the word out to people pretty darn quick as these begin to roll out.
I would like to get a few more signs out there before we go crazy with that, but yeah, we'll start putting out material on how we're changing the system as a result of this. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I was riding down Route 10.
In the bus?
No, in
Why not?
the car. Well, I was over to Myrtle Beach and
Yeah.
I was riding down Route 10. But, I hate to be cynical all the time, but I just don't like those signs. They're not big enough. And why are they so high?
Well, they have to be 7 feet up per DOT regs.
Like I saw some higher than 7 feet.
So they have to be higher than
The bottom of the sign
van.
has to be more than 7 feet up. We'll look into that and how, I'll talk to the contractor about that and make sure that we're getting them down.
So
to
they're
that.
kind of hard to see,
Yeah, the yellow on them doesn't pop like I hoped. I think they look good at night. I think they'll pop at night because they're reflective and the yellow will be a lot more visible. I don't know, maybe someday we can go out and put different signs out there. The size of the sign is all DOT regulated, so I can't
I
do
still
it.
don't like.
Well, we can have the minutes register that Mr. Wilson is
Yes.
opposed to DOT's requirement.
Yeah.
Anytime I go to DC,
Let the
I talk to
minutes-
Mrs. Chu.
The minutes indicate.
Brian, what about the ceilings up along that? Looks pretty dirty.
Yeah, we'll have to get it power washed. Right now I'm working on the floors out there. The floors are a mess. So,
Why'd you put all those plastic benches out there?
Well, maybe with the power
Oh,
wash,
because we're
that'll
getting ready
clean
to
it up
wash
quite a
these, get these
bit.
floors waxed and get it cleaned up in there.
And I think we discussed this briefly. We're still waiting for Brian's guidance on when to do a rollout of signage.
Yes.
You do that too early, and if it misses 80% of the people, then, you know, we failed in that mission. You do it too late, and it's old news. So we've got to find a
Right.
60-40 balance or something like that.
Yeah, I think we're kind of past a little bit with, you know, we're having this issue with SCDOT, so we're gonna go out and celebrate it without getting their blessing on some of these, so.
Yeah.
Now that we have that, we'll look into scheduling something. Michelle's not back until the 29th of April, so it'll have to happen sometime after that.
How about Route 16? How's that coming along? That started about?
16, Route 16?
Yeah.
Not yet. I'm not sure which task order that was, but that task order hasn't happened yet. It's on the list.
Well, with AECom coming today, with the history we have with Route 10, like when do we think 15 north and south will be in the ground? Is that any way to even guess?
Well, I mean, we've gone through the process once. I think our reviewing entities know what we're asking for. So, you know, I don't even know if SCTOT is gonna want another meeting. They may just look at them, and if they're fine, they'll say, okay. If they, you know, hopefully we'll reduce that whole time it takes to go through that process. I'll talk to them today and send you guys an email on what their thoughts are on that.
What is our latest scheduled completion date on all sites?
We don't have a scheduled completion date. We're knocking them out as we get into them.
Years.
I'm not gonna, I've been chastised too much for trying to set dates, so. I'm gonna try to be patient and get them in there as soon as we can.
Okay, all right. Well, I mean, as long as it doesn't increase the cost involved, that's what I'm getting at.
Well, you know, cost-wise, I think we're doing okay. I mean, it's $1,000 to $1,500 per sign to get them implemented, including all of the upfront, you know, the stop here was about 8,000 to get all that squared away.
Yeah.
So it's not cheap. You know, I think we have enough money to probably get half of them done, so we gotta find some more money. You know, maybe more. I mean, we're in the 200s out of the 415 stop locations. So we'll keep plugging.
You know, in Charlotte, I was in Charlotte twice in the last month. They have a variety of seating arrangements around signs. Not just the normal beds, some beds with a cover, others
Where's
just Charlotte.
Uh-huh.
I just saw about 3 different varieties, in small stops, just 2 little seats. The sign comes down the middle and 2 little seats on the side. It just,
Like
every
that
one
are
of them-
cantilevered on the
yeah,
pole? Yep.
every one of them had a concrete pad around it though. None of them I saw saw some in grass, but you just stand there. It was pretty creative where they did the different ones up there, like down the road. It don't like to be that expensive if you didn't have to pour the pad.
Well, I mean, there's some areas where we're gonna wanna pour it back. But yeah, I mean, they have a little bit more of an urban environment and a little bit more money.
I got stuck.
And they probably have 10,000.
I made a mistake and got in the wrong curb lane behind the bus, heavy traffic, I could never get, so I followed this bus, I bet close to 30 miles. So I got to see a lot of different stops.
All right.
Anything else on stops?
At some point, and I guess this is for Michelle, at some point I imagine you're gonna wanna do a television interview. You know, it's been a good year since you've been talking to the newsy people there on the news. At some point, you've now got an item at least to talk about, to discuss, along with new buses, but I would imagine that sometime in May or June, you're gonna wanna get on the news, introducing the results of this year's activities.
Again, it will be permanent by DOT approval and working with us before we launch, you mean, acknowledgement of the project.
Well, you're gonna probably wanna get on the news anyways for the new, the summer trolleys.
I sent that, yes, the entertainment, shuttle information out. But we're not doing a sneak preview for it this year with you.
Say that again, I couldn't hear that.
We have not scheduled a sneak preview of the shuttle. This year is the same as last year. We will send out the press release in the media.
Yeah.
In regards to the launch of the service. We send that out to people in mid-May before it starts on the 28th.
I would think when we do our ribbon cutting for the signs, we can get some TV coverage in.
Okay.
And I can kind of mention that, you mention other things along with what's going on with the signs.
Okay.
I saw a trolley up in the lifts in the back. Hope it's not big. Problem.
They're just getting them ready,
Good.
for the most part, so.
Are we gonna get any new trolleys?
I don't have any prospects for new trolleys, yet, but, we need to start thinking about it for sure, so, well, I've been thinking about it, but, problem is the price point on what we would need. I mean, they're gonna be $350,000 to $375,000 a piece for something that would work on the entertainment shuttle and also work on route. Because those things don't work very well.
Right.
And it has to be a low floor, I think, because you don't wanna put a lift on those. So that's an expensive proposition, so we'll keep working on it.
And you might be ready to include this elsewhere in your GM report, but this group, last month when we met, heard about the possibility of North Myrtle. I don't know if you want to give people an update now because it has to do with trolleys or later.
Well, and I was thinking about that today in terms of, at this point, we're not doing the shuttle up there.
The beach
The
shuttle.
beach shuttle up there because they don't have a parking lot that is really serviceable aside from the recreation center there across the way, and that's just too far. Nobody's gonna wanna park over there and ride a bus to the beach, so, thankfully, the folks in North Myrtle Beach kind of knew that going into it, so. But, I think at some point, we need to put our toe in the water up there somehow. And we need to, I'll need to go talk to them about it. But I think that tow is a shuttle, is something similar to the entertainment shuttle. It's something that, we can show some success with. And it's a price point because it's just a seasonal service, that we can, that we could probably give them a reasonable budget for. The issue will be rolling stock. So whether it's getting some long cutaways in here finally to do it, or working on a trolley buy. I would want to do it with cutaways to start just because of the lower price point. And let's make sure it's going to work before we invest in some more trolleys, because trolleys, they're just not as useful as other vehicles besides doing these shuttles, in my opinion.
But the aesthetic, from where we sit, we know the limits on maintenance and all of that. But from the public and visitors, I don't know how you.
They have some nostalgia to them,
Yeah, they do.
and I get that, which is why I don't wanna buy short on those vehicles. I want something that,
That's what our West Myrtle Beach buys a shuttle, buys the nice looking one. Let Myrtle Beach buy 2 trolleys, one-time expense.
No, but the Myrtle Beach,
I don't want
Trolley.
to run them for 3 months out of the year. That's not a good use of the vehicle.
What you didn't pay for, what difference does it make?
I still gotta go with FTA regulations and stuff like that,
Yeah,
so it's
they
not,
pay that
you're not,
for 40
you really
years.
can't depreciate them
Okay. And,
well.
and
And I want something that supports the rest of my service.
well, that's the second thing. If you're not spending one penny of your own money to get them, and someone gives them to you, even though they'll never be depreciated, what is the downside of that?
I have to maintain them. I'm putting money into
All
them.
right, but okay.
Plus it uses our grant money up. And,
I mean, he's talking about a 100% purchase.
I'm talking about totally, okay.
Our track record down there hasn't really pointed to being able to get 100%
It's something we never
of
done.
anything.
Something we never done before, right? You getting a lot more money that they're committed to year in, year out. One-time monies from them might be an easier sell than getting an extra $200,000 for every year going forward, but we'll see.
The volume of the Myrtle Beach shuttle has got to be double what it would be for a North Myrtle Beach shuttle. I mean, we're not running until midnight or 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. You're shutting it down at, as it gets dark, and you're not starting at 5 o'clock in the morning. So there really are different finances involved in the acquisition of that equipment as well. We're just telling you what you already know. We're trying to get the board in the loop of it as well. But the bottom line is that Myrtle Beach knows that we are not delivering beach service at North Myrtle Beach this summer of 2019. And the board kind of thought we would be in the business of doing that. So it's just an update to the board.
Yep, yep.
Okay.
On the ridership front, I pulled this from the KPIs, this graph. And aside from this hiccup in September and October, we've had some pretty good, we're having some pretty good luck or whatever on ridership. This point from last March, you can see, is lower than this point for this March. And that's because aside from September and October, every month has been 4 to 8% better than the previous month of the previous year, and that same month in the previous year. And it's an interesting trend. I don't know that I have all the answers on why it's happening. I think we've kind of leveled off on our reliability, and I think we get our 40 in-service breakdowns per year, and that's kind of the way it's going to be. I think our on-time performance is decent. It's certainly better than it used to be long-term, but it has leveled off. We haven't. We are going to re-implement our operating procedure for waiting on the Route 7. We're not going to wait on the Route 7 during the day, except for the first trip and the last trip. Because it's really hurting service on routes 10, 15, and 15. And so we might see a little spike in improvement in on-time performance as a result of that. And the main reason for switching back to that operating procedure is because of the bridges. The 7 has been late routinely.
You don't have control over that.
Yeah, we just don't have any control over getting across the bridges. So hopefully it'll get a little better when the bridge opens, if it opens.
Then in January we have another whole bridge to go.
Right. Yeah. How fun will that be? But it's a nice trend. It's been very consistent over the years. I think routes 2 and 3, the Loris and Bucksport routes, have a little bit of impact on this because every time they get on, they get up here, they got to get on again somewhere. So you're counting boardings, so that's helped a little bit. But just think in general, we're doing pretty well. It's been so consistent. So really, what we need to see is the revenues kind of follow. And so we are working on trying to fix fare boxes on the fly depending on what the problem is with the fare box. But we're still doing a lot of free trips. And so we're telling, we're not offering free trips for late buses as often. And we have this issue where you've got these 4 components on the fare box. There's a bill reader, there's a coin reader, there's a ticket trim, and there's a fourth that I can't remember what it is at the moment. But these are 4 components that anybody with a little bit of training can plug and chug. And so the problem is if the bill changer goes bad, we're not taking any fares because it's not fair to somebody who has a ticket to pay and somebody who has bills not pay because the bill changer is not working. And so we're trying to avoid conflict as it relates to that. So we're trying to get our supervisors trained up so that they can change bill collectors or bill readers, they can change a coin reader, just do rudimentary issues. Now, if it's something bigger than that, like there's a component in there that transfers the coins and the dollar bills into the secure holding area at the bottom of the fare box. I can't remember the name of that transition piece, but that is not something that we can fix on the fly. So if it's a power issue or it's something to do with that transfer piece, we're trying to take the bus out of service as soon as we can.
And what do you mean by true zero fare trips? What's true?
Yeah, those are essentially our Route 99 ridership. That's things like street rodders,
I got it.
special events at the ridership.
Donated services.
So you can see that even after we took out the riders from last year's street rodders, we still had a 93 cent per boarding number.
On $1.50 fare.
On $1.50 fare, that's pretty good. But here, you can see, this year, we were only at 77 cents. So there's been a lot of degradation over the year, and this is just taking 2 months out, so take the data with a grain of salt. But you can see October, November, December, January, February, I mean, it's kind of up and down, but, you know, we're running a little bit low on our per boarding fare. And to me, this is the best indication of too many free trips or too many down fare boxes and things like that. So I'm watching this number as we move forward.
I can make a big comment, back with fare boxes, when it's not a quick fix, and you want to take the bus out of service, which instead of running it the rest of the day and getting
Right.
wrecked. We no longer stage a bus down at the Ivory Wilson Transfer Center? When the last two times-
We do, but there's been some issues with it, either whether it's been not having enough buses to do it, or getting it down there because of traffic and all that sort of thing.
The last
So
two times there, it wasn't there, but normally Al comes out and gets it, drives it down there.
Debbie, I think, drives it down there.
We'll do the one down there yesterday.
Yeah,
All right.
so they're supposed to be doing it.
Good.
And obviously it'll become more important as the summer kicks in.
Last year they had that 7 o'clock express, which was a deadhead really down there.
Right.
Are they gonna do that again?
I haven't talked to Doug about that, but I would imagine so, just to get it down there sooner than later.
You know, at some point, we're gonna have to ask you for who's the point person for dealing with the fare box. You can't
That's
do it all. Is that
Candace
Doug?
Brown.
Candace?
She's running it. I'm just looking at the data she gives me.
As a
So,
board, we need to put Candace in the spotlight once or twice over the next few months. I know it's not a very pleasant place to be, but, you know, we've been hearing about the fare box issues for the greater part of 6 months now, and at 73 cents, we're clearly not there yet. So we've got to turn up the spotlight on that, give it its importance.
well, I mean, it's possible that, you know, we could do, you know, road call. You could put the spare bus into service and then send, there's one mechanic and Candace who are our experts on
Yep.
fixing them. She's kind of the day shift and he's the night shift. And so we haven't really put that into place. We've been just getting the bus back here as soon as we can, type of thing. So both maintenance and operations are working on what our procedures will be on that to improve this. And then it's also, you know, and it's something we'll talk about at the State of the Coast meeting is just, you know, drivers sticking to their guns a little bit more. You know, I don't want to fight anybody over $1.50, but, you know, we just need to kind of redirect how we're doing that.
Well, we're moving into the summer season where the humidity at one point was thought to greatly encourage deterioration of the fare box with dollar bills and things like that getting jammed.
Yeah, well, we've worked on at least the ticket side
Or
of
the
that.
ticket side,
We're
more than
using
dollar bills,
better paper
Yep.
now. So we're hoping that that's gonna be less of an issue.
Okay.
It doesn't protect us necessarily from sabotage where somebody will
Yeah, chew on it.
chew something up to put it in there, but, we'll, you know, obviously drivers need to be vigilant and not let them put that type of stuff in the.
How about upgrading the fare box itself?
That's a long-term solution that we obviously don't have the money yet to do that. I mean, plus these boxes have a useful life too, that's
They're
like,
pretty old.
well, I mean, I think they're 8 and 9 years old on a 10-year useful life. But I've got 20 of them sitting back there that are not depreciating.
Mhm.
So I've got to either take the hit on that, but this really does need a study, and it's something that I'm going to have to hopefully do, both on fare structure, you know, and trying to improve this adjusted fare per boarding number any way we can, but then also, you know, changing the technology.
Is it possible to have, like, if you have 20 spare boxes, have a couple down there and just change out the whole box? Is that
That's not doable on the road. It's just those 4 components. So we do have 2 of each of those components at the transit center down in Myrtle Beach. We use the driver exchange, you know, they take the minivan down there for the afternoon
Right.
shift changes. We use that as sort of a courier service if we need to get something else down there. But it's a problem that, I mean, I think we've started to address, and we're gonna keep hammering on it.
I like Rob's idea though, that we don't, Candace has got a nice setup and inventory of what she does there. I've been impressed with her when she was there the one time. I think if it needs more spotlight, let her know that she may come up with some other creative things, her thinking about it on her own, that we haven't thought about. But I'd like to have a single belly button, and I think she's got the moxie to do it, the way my interchanges with her so far.
So you guys are tired of me talking?
No,
Well,
but
you
you
can't
can't
own
do
everything.
everything. You can't do everything.
You
And
can't
got
own
some-
it all.
And you got some talented people.
So honestly, I'm not doing anything with this. She's giving me the data,
Yeah, but that's it. Then you.
and then I present it.
Well, I'll tell you 2 things.
And
So
you come up with
you think I'm
things-
trying to come up with all the solutions?
Yeah.
I tell them, Jay, I brought everybody in here, I said,
Okay.
guys, I need my per boarding rate to go up.
All right, okay.
Figure it out.
Good.
Well, I'll tell you 2 things I've seen, and I can't tell you who did these and stuff, because I'm not a secret shopper. But I have seen where a bus wouldn't take dollar bills, but people would change paid fares. People with dollar bills did not. So that doesn't create, that creates ill will.
Yep.
The other thing I've seen is a bus out here coming up late, and I think the number 7 o'clock leaves a little bit late, although they say it's waiting for the Laura's bus, but those buses are there sometimes.
Yep.
And you're talking about 5 or 10 minutes, which screws everybody up at the beach. But I have seen people getting on for free here when I figured the fare box was broken, and then people paying later on. They let everybody on because they were late.
And so then they'll pay when they get on the next
Well, they'll
route.
pay on the next bus.
Yeah.
They'll pay less. If they're not taking another bus, they won't pay at all. But the person who gets on 544 has to pay the whole fare. Now, I haven't seen that often, and I've only really
Right.
seen it. I can only be sure of it once. And that creates ill will, so that people know what's going on.
Well, but if it's broken or terribly late, I could see letting people on. But once it's fixed, I think you're back in business and you're collecting fares even on the same routes.
But if you let everybody on when the bus starts its route here,
Yeah.
and then the person who gets on down by what I call a meat locker down there, I don't know what it is now, but,
The locker point?
the locker plant, yeah.
Yep.
But they pay.
How did the person down there even know the first people didn't pay?
Well,
You never
told them,
somebody told
obviously.
them, yeah.
You got on free, you had to pay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that they told them. I mean, I didn't hear anybody telling anybody, but I'm assuming.
So, when we first started this conversation back in January or whenever we started talking about it, the issue was about 40% late buses, 60% fare box failures.
Yeah.
So I'm really focused on the 60%, although we are stiffening up our procedures for the lake side, all right? I still want the service to be on time, and, but I think if we can get the 60% up, our numbers should get closer to where
77,
they were.
the board, 77 gonna get how about closer to 93, or I won't be satisfied. And a
10-4.
year later, crumpled up dollar bills and letting people on for nothing when they, and not charging. That's no different from what it was back a year ago in March. Something else has changed besides mechanical failures. Mechanically, I think we're better shape today than we were a year ago. But yet.
You'd like to think that, yes.
I'd like to believe that.
Yeah.
Your people are trained better, you're pre-positioning parts and get back in service, but I think you said it earlier when you have your state of the coast, you gotta get more consistent and it's not a candy store shop giving away everything when it's easier to do.
Yeah. Pick your spots, but don't take the easy way out every time.
Oh, Jack, you said that better than I could have said that.
We got it. So we'll be talking about that. Ecolane, just a couple of things on Ecolane, which is our new software package for paratransit. Certainly, we've been pleased with the way they brought it in and implemented it. For the most part, we have seen over in the first 2 months of operation a fairly sizable increase in productivity, even beyond now adding personal assistance to the ridership numbers. So we're still over 1 now, which is really nice.
That happened between February and March?
Yeah, well, January was our last month with route match, and then February is our first month with Ecolane.
No, I mean, but between February and March, I think is when you started adding a reporting of the helpers.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So I have seen a reduction in on-time performance, which I think is to be expected, and I think it's gonna be moving in the right direction. But it's really more of an issue on teaching the system problems with scheduling than anything else. You know, this particular road segment takes 10 minutes instead of 8 minutes, you know, those types of things that we need to educate the system. So I have gotten Ecolane, they're coming back to do some more on-site training, tentatively scheduled for the 6th, 7th, and 8th, to look at these 3 items, that feedback loop and teaching the system how to, you know, what our traffic issues are. And I think it's really important that we know that process before we get into the summertime and we have all sorts of issues.
When Bucksport and Morris officially become fixed routes, we can expect an increase in demand response in those folks living in 3/4 of those routes?
Well, I think so. I mean, we're already providing some paratransit in those areas. So I know we have a client up off of 701. We're gonna, it kind of jumps into Bucksport and Morris, but we're gonna go ahead and go down to the marina for the summertime. We're gonna do a pilot program for that.
In Bucksport?
In Bucksport. And I think we're gonna keep the Bucksport route a little bit more like a fixed route. So we will be providing paratransit. It'll still be paratransit drivers running it, but we're not gonna do those route deviations. We'll go ahead and pick those people up normally, just because it's a lot closer to us than Loris. Loris, we never did get a public meeting in place for that, but Michelle's been on trips pretty religiously over the past couple of weeks. You know, I think we've gotten pretty good feedback. We do not get very good ridership out of the Finkley Center. So we're gonna get up to the top of 410 there and take a right on Route 9 business, and then go into the hospital. So we've had pretty good feedback from the hospital about using our service up there, and then over the hills and then back down 701. So it'll be more of a terminus loop and not that little jug out to Finkley. We did feel like we have enough ridership on 410 to warrant that.
Do we need a meeting before we change that?
I don't know that we need a meeting. Michelle put together a nice little memo on sort of why we haven't been able to do a meeting. There's not really any good spaces up there. The city is out, not in their normal city hall.
And who's running this city now?
I'm not sure who the temporary mayor is. Michelle, do you know?
Mayor Pro Tem, is the interim mayor.
So the pro tem, who is that?
This is Councilman, and right now, his name is David,
Is it Kemsky?
well, this,
Okay, never mind.
he's technically running it, it's just the mayor's situation. They have to have a special election for the mayor this summer, and then that mayor comes back up for election in November. And whoever wins the special election still has to fight for the position in November.
So, there's just wasn't, I mean, we even talked about taking a bus and parking it in the Hills parking lot and having the meeting in there,
In the bus.
in the bus.
We did that once before.
We we haven't really,
I think you were here then, the beginning of.
yeah, really early on.
Yeah.
Majority of the people who would be interested are riding, and they're getting off along the route. So if there's no central location, it makes the most sense to host the meeting.
So what I was getting at is Michelle's put together some nice documentation that if FTA ever calls us on not having a true public meeting, we've done everything else in our power to, you know, let people know what's going on and try to get their input, I think. So just
We
quick,
even needed to get a screenshot of me on, interacting with
yeah,
it.
just to verify it in a court of law. So just quickly to finish up on the eco lane stuff, we do want to get more consistent driver scheduling. We still have a lot of gaps that, you know, it's just because we have gaps. It's not anything really eco lane can do to generate ridership. So I just want to get a little better handle so that drivers have a better indication of what they're doing next Tuesday versus, you know, not knowing anything at all. And then improving on the customer service function. I know that we've had a number of riders get frustrated with us especially on late trips. But we need to do a much better job of getting them notifications when we are late. You know, if I'm coming to give Mr. Wilson a ride and I'm gonna be 10 minutes late, I'll pick up the phone and call you and tell you I'm running 10 minutes late. And so we're not really doing that enough with enough consistency. You know, that'll be part of the training as well. But I think in general, I don't know, Heather, have you been even using us?
Honestly,
No.
no.
Good.
It's been about 2 months or so now since I
Yep.
used it. And in the beginning, it was pretty bad in the beginning, I'm not gonna lie. It took me like an hour and a half to get picked up from work every night, and I live like 5 miles from work.
Wow.
So I just started kind of riding home with friends, and I knew it was gonna take time for all the bugs to get worked out, and, you know, I was talking to the drivers and just kind of asking them like what they thought the main problems were and stuff, so it wasn't that I was, you know, upset with the service or anything, it was more just, I wanted to get home.
Yeah.
Got it.
You gotta be.
So,
That would explain the spike in complaints.
I'm definitely gonna start using it
Yep.
once school is over, which is next week. And put in the main meeting as far as how I think things will change, but I've had to kind of find rides home so I can get school work done and stuff, but like I said, I'm not upset, I knew it would take some time to get things worked out.
So if you don't mind, I'm gonna talk about your trip getting back from, well, you're going from work to home, so not from CCU, not up to CCU.
No, this was just,
Yeah.
I get off work at 5, and, you know, that's what I would say whenever I called is, you know, I didn't really have any previous obligations to get home or anything, it was just that, you know, I still have to cook and clean and do my homework and stuff to get ready for bed, so when it was taking like an hour and a half, I mean, there was one day that I called the dispatch maybe like 4 or 5 times before anyone came to get me.
Yeah.
And
So-
then I got dumped off.
So,
So I think it was just bad scheduling, like you were saying, because the scheduling is still not correct at this point.
we found, I mean, there's a couple of issues here that we are working on. There are times where the schedule will tell us that the van needs to leave Myrtle Beach with a passenger on it and come back to Conway or post to Conway. and then go back. I mean, so stuff like that, that you just, and the reason is that the system doesn't understand how long it takes to do that 15-mile
Yeah.
trip.
Exactly.
And so we need to teach it, obviously, and we've been slow on that feedback loop. What the schedulers have been trying to do is force changes in the schedule that screw up other downstream scheduling issues. So,
Exactly.
so
Exactly.
that's been the heaviest lift for us. And so I
Exactly.
thought it was,
And I know, in the beginning, you know, it was just, I think when it first got implemented, it was just kind of chaos. Because I would leave for work about 7:15 or so, and I got phone calls at 6:30 telling me my bus was outside, and no one had told me they were gonna be there 45 minutes early, so then I couldn't go. I mean, I wasn't ready, you know? So I think that portion's been worked out a bit better, from when I last used it, but I think the scheduling, like you said, is probably the main issue. And it's just, like you said, the system, teaching the system that sometimes the GPS doesn't know that even though it thinks this route is the best way, it's not the best way. So maybe the drivers could somehow like override certain routes that it gives it, if that's possible. I don't know if that's possible or not.
well, no, I mean, the answer is putting in a longer travel time for that particular road.
Yeah, or that, yeah.
So that the system knows that that's not as
And
doable.
whose job is it to teach it, and does that occur on a daily basis or a weekly basis? How does the teaching function work its way out operationally?
It's, and I mean, it is, we need to send them a note that says this particular road segment at 5 o'clock on weekdays is 30 minutes instead of 20 minutes.
You send the
Whatever
company
it
a
is,
note?
and we send it to Ecolane, and that gets written into the algorithm.
So if we were to look at Ecolane's records and ask how many updates have been sent in, what would you expect us to
I
see?
would expect that number to be really low, because they're not, my staff is not utilizing that. They're trying to beat the system on the front end instead of feeding it on the back
Adjusting it,
end.
yeah.
Which is why I'm getting them back here
Yeah.
to get moving on that.
And that's the feedback loop, that's what you're
That's
calling
that
it.
feedback loop, yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, in general, I think, you know, schedules are better organized.
Erica, there's another button on that.
She's helping. That's not what I intended for her to be doing, but she's helping immensely with
It's
that
almost like the
process.
same question Rob asked about who's, other than you, is in charge of fare boxes, when we talked about Canvas. It seems like there should be many people participate, but ultimately one person is the go-to person.
Well, there's three individuals. There's Debbie Jones and Janet Hughes and Melissa Greer who are doing the schedules
And who's
on
their
a day-to-day basis.
Who's their supervisor?
Doug.
Okay, Doug. Somebody else.
So they're in operations,
Okay,
and
all right.
they're the ones that know the system.
Okay.
They just need to know it better.
Gotcha, okay.
Well, they need information to feed the system, if they're the ones that do the feeding that makes the phone
So the software is pretty good about telling you what happened on certain things. So, yeah, after, well,
Happened ED.
Yeah,
well,
but then that's when you add it.
but that's when you need to be Johnny on the
Feeding back
spot
in,
and tell
yeah.
it, okay, we wanna say that's gonna
Yeah.
happen more often than not. So that's what we want the system to assume will happen, you know, in future schedules. So that's by far been the heaviest lift.
This is just
We've
a,
got people on, you know, I think we've got people on text message notices if they wanna be on, so they can get more information about what's happening with their ride and those types of things. We're ready to roll out the app so they can actually schedule trips and that sort of thing. So, we're pretty close to getting all that out.
So why are we missing it on the feedback loop? Is it very hard to do, or is there no time for people to do it?
I'm trying to break old habits.
I've never lived anywhere where the traffic patterns are more inconsistent than
And
they are here.
that's
And
part of it
Not
too.
inconsistent in a little way. I mean, on one day, you can make it down 501 in a flash, and a day later, you're finding yourself hung up for a half hour waiting between four
Right.
intersections.
You've called me twice on that. Yeah, on 501 by the cop.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're
It's
right,
such a
it's
challenge.
And
unpredictable.
so Dr. Sheen still doesn't believe me that it's the college's fault.
I don't think it is, but on the other hand, you can't build a system always geared toward the worst. Because otherwise, you're gonna end up like at 6:45 outside Heather's house when, you know, she knows there's no reason to be there.
7:10, exactly.
But if
Yeah,
you always put in the information, even though it's inconsistent, maybe the algorithm that they're using can somehow sort it out.
Yeah, well, and
Give you the best.
that's something I wanna ask Ecolink. It's like, is it possible to overreact? You know, some problem is happening out there and we're overreacting that this is a consistent problem. Do we, so we need to really think about, how that is. So I think it's important for us to have the three schedulers in the same room and talk about it. And so I'm glad that they're able to.
well, you need to have decision rules. Under what basis should we be changing the schedule?
Yes.
Is it an average? Is it 3 times in a row? Is it 3 times in a week? But somebody needs to give the guidance, because short of that, I think it's normal for somebody to try to figure an end run around the system if they don't have the decision rules.
Well, and the system has a lot of capability to help you sort of adjust on the fly. And I don't know that we're completely using those either. So,
Can it just take information, all the information and sort it out itself, or do we have to like, deliver it every little bit of it? I mean, even if it's a good day, there's no problem.
no, I mean, I think, that's all, I mean, I don't really have the answer to that, I just think that's something that we need to talk with them about and keep talking with them about until we get the system where we feel like it's educated enough to give us a good schedule. So, I mean, there's a lot of human error still, I mean, drivers are waiting too long in certain instances and things like that, they're not, pushing the button at the right time. So you're putting bad data back into the system. So it's, there's a lot of factors that we're just gonna keep getting help from Ecolink until we get it right.
I bought a piece for a table saw and I couldn't get it right. And I started calling and finally got the engineer. And he said, trust the gauge. Forget about what you're looking at, trust the gauge.
Right.
And he was right, he was absolutely right.
And that's hard for people to put into their daily lives.
Yeah, it took me about an hour at me
Right.
before I decided, okay, I'll try it.
Right.
Yeah, it's the table saw though.
So I still have 3 route match people in there, they haven't converted to Ecolink. Any more questions on this? So we do have State of the Coast coming up, April 30th. Anybody who wants to come to the 4 a.m. meeting is welcome to come. That's for my paratransit drivers, so they can come in. And then we have May 1st at 3 p.m. and May 2nd at 10 a.m. So
How long do these meetings last?
they're going to be an hour to 90 minutes, depending on how many questions. But we are going to focus on some upcoming training. I think it's really important that between now and Memorial Day that we get as much cross-training done on routes as possible, just to be a little bit more flexible on, drivers doing different stuff. We have one more round of defensive driving scheduled, that's to pick up all our new drivers and any stragglers. I don't think I really have any stragglers that haven't been through that course within the last 2 years. But if we do, we'll get them in there as well. Jay's been working with Horry County Police on live shooter training, so we're going to get that squared away. We're going to start with the facility people, since that's where it's more likely to be an issue if it ever becomes an issue. But it's also what the training is sort of centered on. And during that, I hope to kind of corner the trainer on what's this mean for somebody on a bus.
I'm not sure I'm agreeing that the facility is the priority compared to the bus. I mean, I'd have to see some data to believe that it's more likely someone goes into the Ivory.
It's more, I wish I hadn't said it that way, it's more a product of what the training is designed for.
Yes.
And then let's make some tweaks to the training.
Yeah, on the bus.
That's kind of why we're doing it in that order.
You'll have different training for different buses. Like some of them only have one exit, right?
Well, yeah, when we talk about that, I know that the Oregon County Police were interested in actually doing some training for themselves before that type of situation. So hopefully we'll let them, you know, I'll give them a bus and we can learn sort of what some of those things are, and then give our drivers some. It's really about helpful hints on how to handle the situation, because it's, you know, it's not certainly a fun thing to consider, but.
Because the dart buses are those ones that
Those are single door, you're right. So there are issues between, you know, what type of equipment we're talking about, so. And then also, pre-trip inspections, this is sort of a common thing that crops up every now and again, is, you know, people not taking the time to look at tires, and, you know, those types of things, so we just gotta get back on that, and it'll be good for a while, and then it'll start dragging again, and we'll bring it up again, so. You know, the big thing that I impress upon drivers is that pre-trip inspection is a requirement of your CDL. And if you're driving a substandard piece of equipment, then that's on you. And so it's, I think most of them understand that, but we're doing a lot of what we call pencil whipping.
And when do they do that? When they take the bus over, when they, on their first run?
Yep. So, or, you know, if in the case of a en route relief, you do it at your next layover point, you know, as soon as you can.
What is pencil whipping?
You just check every box and say it's fine.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
Really?
Yeah.
I never heard that.
Happens a lot.
I hadn't heard that.
We got lots of
Stories.
Yeah, you from a fire.
Tell them to do that,
So I'm
because
not-
the check marks are about the same size.
Always in the
Smart
same
was they
place.
changed from pencil to blue ink to black ink, and it looked like they're not, I'm serious, nurses stealing drugs.
Pass those around, please. You, Bernie, can you pass one down to Joe?
Mm.
Give you another one.
Thank you.
You got any defensive driving coming up anytime soon?
Yes, we do.
When's that?
The defensive driving will be in this room. Is that what you mean?
When?
I don't have the dates, but as soon as I do, why, you wanna come take it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I
We'll-
need
we'll
that.
send it out.
Need
For your insurance?
Me and my wife, we get a little cut on my,
It's a very good quote.
Yep.
I saved 90 cents on my insurance.
90 cents.
90 cents.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I
Minuscule
wanted,
amount.
I wanted to give you all just sort of an old school update on our vehicle status, what's happening with the fleet. This is the latest VSR that came in. Yes,
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I actually have to run.
Okay.
I've used pretty much like all my life at this point.
understood.
So I'm just gonna have to hop off. I just wanted to give you a heads up in case you interrupted me and I didn't answer.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for letting me attend like this. I really appreciate it.
Not
Bye-bye.
a problem.
All right, you guys have a great day. I'll talk to you soon.
You
Bye-bye.
too.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
We have a lot of down buses.
Well, yeah, and this is, because I'm not supposed to be involved in every aspect of our operation, I haven't really worried about too much. But,
I feel that kick.
You could have Doug come.
that was for Daryl. You know, this is a constant fight, obviously, for Tom. I think Tom and his staff do a pretty darn good job keeping this fleet afloat. You know, still the primary part of our fleet are the dart buses, and right now there's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down. I know that the steering issue on 55718 is in process, and it should be back up here in the next day or two. Transmission issues, I'm not sure, I know that 15 is pretty new, you can see the date on when these happened, so the engine issue, I know that 5758 is getting a new engine that's sitting out there on the shop floor.
If we were to get one of these 2 months ago, or 3 months ago, would we see approximately the same number of buses out of service within a month of when we received the report? I'm looking at all the Aprils here, and
Yeah.
late Marches, and I'm just wondering, is that normal and they get fixed if something
Yeah.
else breaks?
I think so. I think it's pretty normal.
Okay.
I mean, the dart buses have been money pits, no lie. I mean, it's and it's mostly turbos, transmissions, engines. Those engines, you know, they've been rebuilt many times. So,
Getting 2 new buses the October timeframe, so that
Yes.
sort of
right now, the one thing on here I saw is the 1501 is not in service because of an engine, but that is a warranty issue, so should be back here shortly. And then up top, we have 2 of the paratransit buses down, which is an issue because there are days of the week when we need as many as 9. 782 was in the accident, so it's not coming back. 386 should be back at some point here soon. It's a
And use
wheelchair issue.
386 for a non-wheelchair person and still be decent.
Possibly, and we would if we needed to. We also use the minivans in that, and we are probably, I think, within 60 days of receiving our first transit. So that's the smaller version of these with a wheelchair on the back. So hopefully that'll happen here, June timeframe, and we'll get that up and running.
And what about these internationals? Are we any further down the road on
The letter has been sent to go ahead and replace them with these 2 state contract buses. I think from, you know, that have to be funded with all local funds.
But there'll be new buses.
But there'll be new buses, and I think the way we're budgeting for that is we'll bridge fiscal years. One fits in this year with the budget revision, and the other one will fit in. So I'll just need to have them delivered sometime after October 1st.
There'll be 24 passenger.
And there'll be 24 and 2 wheelchair positions.
Well, 24 passenger, you can use that on 15s a lot of the year.
Yes, those are very useful vehicles, and 142 has done it, you know, which is in that same type of bus, has done a yeoman's job, but it's ready to go away. So one of those buses will replace 142, and then the other one will be an additional bus.
And do they have destination signs on them?
They will.
Well, when you
Yes.
got, you know, 1218 for a head gas, take that, put a head gas on.
1218.
How about,
1228.
No,
1228.
Yes, it's putting in the whole engine. We're taking the whole engine out. So yeah, that has been down there for a while, and I'm not sure why. But you know, if you're going to take on a full engine replacement,
That still shouldn't take that long.
no, it's just a matter of getting to it. So it's not like I mean, they're doing other things to keep other buses running. So it gets put in there when we can break away somebody to do it.
And do we still have a spare engine there that we can?
That's one that'll go into 5758.
Now, I was speaking for the board when Brian and I talked about this a couple of days ago, and for the board, I said I thought the board would be interested in seeing a report like this every other board meeting. I don't know if I'm speaking too cautiously for the board, if you wanted every 3rd meeting, but I knew we hadn't gotten one recently. So let me just stop and ask the board, how often do you want to see and hear a report like this? And do you want Tom to be in the room when it's delivered to get some of this?
Probably every 3 months.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, recorded.
Okay.
How about the 903 and 904?
Those are
Those
the
are the 2
international.
internationals.
Well, these and
Well,
that one that you got.
those are the
down there,
international
those are
buses,
the,
I know, but why are we holding
what
that?
buses
though?
are those?
Again,
Well, they're going
I'm sorry.
the end of the year. Because we have.
Those are the 2
they were
internationals.
bad
Those are the
buses.
internationals we got.
They came in the
Yeah.
stimulus package thing,
That's
and
the
they-
ethical
one
one.
that-
there's a lot of federal equity in them.
Their safety issues.
So we can't just get rid of them. If we get rid of them, we owe the FTA.
I know, we got 2 years. I mean,
This is white trucks.
2015, this is 19.
I
Get
know.
ready to get rid of those.
Yes,
That's
ridiculous.
15.
Yeah, but they're going,
They-
they're going.
we parked
It's
them
been a
like
lot of paperwork. to
First
get
3
rid of
months I
them.
was here.
So what did we decide? Once a quarter and have Tom
Yeah.
available to answer specific questions? Okay.
So, I also wanted to let you know that we have done our federally mandated transit asset management system. And I used a, well, I won't, in the interest of time, I won't show you the template. But it is a massive spreadsheet that we basically dump our entire inventory in. And so far, I've really only focused on the vehicles at hand, but it puts every asset that we have, some of which are all combined into one. That's why they have these custom lines in here. Like, so I don't think on this page we have, like all our fare boxes are a separate asset. Things like that need to go into this system to show kind of their useful life. And I'm not sure where they're getting these values. These are coming right out of the inventory for our administrative office. I'm pretty sure we don't have a $3 million facility, but that may be what was in there from the past. But this is showing us a lot of things. Like, I think really interesting is our bus fleet. The average age is 11.5 years. You want that to be closer to 7. Cutaways are 5.3 just because we have those 2 really old buses. But you want that to be closer to 2.5. Trolley buses are way past. Those are 10-year buses. But this kind of lays it out for you in a very organized way on what the status of your fleet is, and helps you make sort of some goals for the future, which is what this page does. So you can see, like like down here, we need to put in some goals for what's going on with the fare boxes and video equipment and things like that. But right now, I would like to get our fleet to 49% having useful life left over. So half and half, half being within their useful life, half not being within. And so moving closer to the full fleet being, having useful life left, which is a point that I don't think we'll ever get to, but it's, I'm trying to set some realistic targets for our bus purchases in order to rein that in. So I can, the nice thing about this template is that it prints out a fairly, it's not a great read, but it prints out like an 18-page report in PDF form that I can send you guys and look at if you'd like, of sort of where we stand on all of our assets, all of our asset inventory.
This template comes from the FTA?
It's for a small system template, so we needed to provide this to the COG in order to be eligible for 5310 funds. And so it's something that we put together. It's still one person's idea. I still need to vet it with Tom and others, but I had to get it in, so.
Well, what if you have a bus go out of the system, a model go out of the system, and you have inventory left over for that parts? What do you do with it?
We typically, right now, the only bus that we have that's in that situation would be 0018, which is that old 2000 Gillig that's still out there. We use as a spare bus. When that bus goes away, then all the Gillig parts would be sold on auction, and we would purge the inventory of what are essentially obsolete parts.
Doesn't the transportation system have to have a pool where these parts go?
Well, one thing we could do is auction them off with the bus. Because we have to auction the bus off as well. So it goes to govdeals.com.
It would make sense to auction the parts.
And so then, we could, whatever we have in there, whether it's wheels or brakes or whatever,
I
you
was
would
in
put
the
with the.
Yeah, I was thinking one time they had a pool where all these parts go, and then we could pull from that too if we
Like
had.
DOT would have a pool or something
Yeah.
like that?
Yeah,
They had that one time, I
for
know.
parts,
Yeah, for parts.
at the state level? I could go on to Gov, if I wanted to, I could go on to govdeals.com and maybe find some parts for the DART buses.
Yeah,
But we've been using aftermarket, newer and reconditioned parts. I'm not sure if Tom looks at that as a resource or not. The state doesn't really, I mean, if they had anything in their pool, they wouldn't have any buses in it, because they don't really use buses per se.
No, I mean, the repair part,
Yeah,
you know.
so typically we purge the inventory of anything any parts that would go on that particular bus, so. So, any other questions on, fleet?
Thank you.
So I'll, if you would like to see the TAM, the Transit Asset Management tool, then let me know and I'll send it to you. It gets down in the weeds, as it were, but, all right, so grants in process, and we've kind of talked about this, so I'll go through this pretty quickly. This is my last slide. The 5311 rural grant to the state has been submitted for it to begin on July 1st. So we haven't gotten the contract yet, but it's in process and it's in the state's hands at this point. It is, there's $698,000 in 5311 funding, which is exactly what we got last year. We're paying off one last thing for that, and then it should go up considerably in FY21. We did get a boost in SMTF. I think it went from like 186 to 235, and that's because we stopped paying off on something. I can't remember which one. We do have a 5310 grant pending at COG for 2 more transits.
I thought that's pending, I thought those were coming.
No, that was in the last.
There's 2 other ones?
That's in this last round. We went ahead and asked for 2 more. I will talk to them if they have any other money that's sunsetting, about trying to fund a replacement for 782, the one that was involved in the accident.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully we can swing that down there.
Speaking about the COG, I've said this before, and I don't know that anybody thinks it's a good idea, but I'll say it one more time. This transit planner that's part of the COG, isn't this person our advocate out there? Isn't this someone that we can turn to and say, look, here's where we're at, here's what we need, here's, you know what the COG has and what's coming up?
So you wanted to have a COG person come to the board meeting, right?
Well, I think, they're the transit planner and we're the transit agency, and I've never seen this person.
Well, I mean, that's partially my fault, just because I don't really feel like they have a lot of transit
They're more interested in highways.
But I think we're moving in the right direction. I mean, they've already asked me about putting some projects out on our behalf, including the facility project. I'm not sure I'm willing to do that, but I would like them to do something on fares and use their 5307 money to pay for the project.
So this is not a good idea that we meet with this person?
I mean, no, I can bring them up. You did mention it before, so I think we can invite them up and.
Is it Howell or is it?
No, it's,
It's Elizabeth Tucker is our planner, but I think Mark would probably come with her, so.
I mean, the guy that preceded Elizabeth Tucker, who I've not met, I can't think of his name, he got a transfer to a COG in Hawaii.
Yes.
Can't think of his name,
Did
but.
he really? I thought he went up to Philly
Was
to
it
work for
Edward?
FTA. Edward.
No, not Edward, the one before him.
Really got with Hawaii.
Yeah, the guy went to Hawaii.
Tough gig.
I mean, like, he would come here and lay it out. Here's where we have, here's where we're going, here's what we need from you, here's what we can give to you.
Well, I
And we didn't
think,
get a whole lot, but, there was dialogue.
well, I think one thing that they're gonna have to do is to manage Brunswick County, because I don't have time to do it.
Yeah.
And so there's some things that,
Well, that was a deal that we made with them, that we decided at that time that they would take it back over if we needed them to.
right, so that's something that Mark and I talked about.
Yeah.
How much do we get for the Brunswick County piece?
It's around 100,000 a year right now.
But that's
That's
what we
being
manage for
preserved.
them, we don't get
It's being
anything for it.
preserved. We don't,
We just hold it.
we're holding that money until they get their
I
act
mean,
together.
the COG takes a percentage of our money,
That comes off the top
But
but
first.
we don't take a percentage of Brunswick County's money.
Well, they take a percentage off of Brunswick County's
They
money
do.
as well.
But
Across
we're
the
managing
top.
Brunswick
And
County.
then it gets,
Right.
well, we're
We're
not
just
really
holding it.
managing
Yeah,
it, we're
we're
just not
holding it.
spending it. It's probably a better way of putting it.
Yeah.
Although there are, I mean, it's a little bit scary because at FTA, it's money in first money out.
Yeah, no, I think it's
So,
time
like,
for them
they're-
to take it back.
Their FY 14, or no, I said FY 15 dollars are preserved, but they're actually spent. They're preserved in new money.
For the Brunswick money that we're holding,
It's
Is
about
it illegal?
$560,000.
is it illegal to, say we have a short-term cash flow issue?
Sounds
Is
good.
it illegal to touch it for 2 weeks and replenish it 2 weeks later instead of going to the bank?
Boy, that sounds.
Is it legal or illegal? Is the first-
No, you wouldn't do it that way. You wouldn't, because you can't replenish it. There's no method for replenishing it. What you could do is say, I want to spend it this year and I'll preserve additional amount for you next year.
It's not
And,
illegal.
and we would just need their permission to do it. We need a letter from them saying it's
They-
okay.
Well, that might be worth having
Brunswick
that money
County.
around.
All right.
Those little cushions.
So I forgot to mention on 5311 that I am still expecting and a little bit additional funding for intercity funds, but that's gonna happen at some time in FY '20. We are working on an amendment to 5307. We did talk about, I mean, we're either gonna do an amendment or we're gonna do a new grant that would have some operating for this year plus a new funding for next year.
In September of
And I-
2020, did we hear?
Right, and I know that that's doable at this point because the appropriations for 5307 came out from the federal government for FY '19. So we take this year's allotment and spend it next year. So I know the money is available for next year. And I'm happy to report that it was a little bit higher. I think instead of 1.25 million, we're gonna be getting 1.35, 1.4 million available to us for FY '20, which I think is good. You know, and obviously I want to stop using it for operating at some point, so, I don't, that's not gonna be possible for years to come, but that's the goal. We do need to do an amendment to our 5339 grant. There was a 5339 money that was put in place to buy long gutaways, that we put a hold on it, because of all the things going on with the FMO and the international sitting out there. We now want to use that to supplement the grant from the state for these 2 new flyers that are coming in. And then there may be room in there to do another long cutaway or a short cutaway. So we'll have more details for you in upcoming meetings on that.
Right, as you update these in subsequent board meetings, could you put in a drop dead date if such thing exists on these things? What is the time frame that we're
Okay.
talking about for them?
Okay. We'll do that.
That would help
Next
us
time around.
be aware of what's coming and help you to.
I've started on a facility grant scope. We need to get that grant rolling. Obviously, we're gonna put that as, I mean, our first priority is the operating grant, second priority is this amendment to 5339, third priority is the facility grant, and it has to be in place by September. So we need to have that running.
I get it, Mark.
Oh.
Here, I got it.
Um,
I'll beat you to
What's there? And so then I had a couple of other things that kind of cropped up since did the slide. The VW grant, which is the money that came in their legal battles as a result of cheating on emissions tests. There's $34 million available to
Public transit?
well, to be spent in the state for air quality improvement type projects. So I was talking to Keith Scott, who is City of Anderson, but is also a member of the task board, and task is coordinating one request for projects in there, so I need to get him some information on what I want to request by the end of the week, Monday at the latest. And the VW grant presents a lot of issues for us, and I'll try to be as succinct as possible, but they have 10 million available, so they're doing a call for projects for the first 10 million. We know that legislators really do want to beef up the school bus fleet with these dollars, so we're not really thinking there's gonna be a lot available for transits, but we're not gonna get any money if we don't put something in. And so my immediate thought was just put in for 4 buses and let the chips fall where they may. But the problem is I think that if the project that you submit is for match money for federal dollars, it's gonna be a lot more competitive than if you're asking for the full purchase price of the bus. And the problem is I don't really have any discretionary federal money to say that I have in place in order to use these dollars for match. I also can't really go after federal money because I don't have these dollars in place for local match. So it's a real catch-22 type of situation. So I think we're just gonna say, hey, look, you know, give us a few years to spend the money and we'll find the federal dollars, basically.
How about the facilities grant? We can say it's air quality because we're deadheading like 500,000 miles.
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
stretch.
It is.
I have the local match for that though, for the start of it at least. I was thinking of 2 possible possibilities. One, asking for the local match for 4 buses under our current contract with New Flyer and letting them know I need, you know, that contract is good through April of '22, I think. So I got room on that contract and that I will find the federal dollars to fund those. Or the other possibility is repowering the 4 of the DART buses with a Cummins engine that's got clean diesel, and you're taking the 2003 engine off the road. Those would be about $75,000 a piece to do that, roughly. And I think that, you know, because you have some engineering that you'd have to do to put a Cummins engine where a Detroit diesel is. But the reason why I think that project has some merit is because the VW grant requires you to bore a hole in the engine block. Because they want to ensure that that engine is coming off the road and will not be emitting
Cash
anymore.
for clunkers.
All right, so that presents some issues for FTA disposal requirements. And so I'm not sure that anybody has really thought through that whole process, because what will happen is if I bore the hole in the engine, then I have to pay FTA the market value for that bus, even though you aren't gonna pull that amount of money off of it because it doesn't have an engine in it.
Scrap metal.
So, I think that, I mean, I wanna talk to Tom a little bit about what the merits are of repowering one. I think the bodies are in pretty good shape for the most part. We would probably put them in concert with a paint job, do some work, interior work on things. That way I'm not screwing around with FTA on this whole engine boring thing. And I can ask for the full amount. So, food for thought here for the next couple of days to kind of try to figure out. And the last thing on my list.
I have alarm bells going off in my head at trying to preserve the life of the DART buses in that way, but I have to admit, it's just complete amateurism. I have, you know, no particular skill set to help me know that.
Yeah.
We just have this feeling we got everything we could get out of the DART buses, and now we need to get the hell away from it.
So, and I agree with that to a certain extent, but we're setting ourselves up for 20 to 30 grand per bus and trying to pay back FTA for the residual value. It has nothing, I mean, they have spent their useful life. It just gets over that $5,000 threshold, and it's gonna cost us more money to use this grant.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you. You were gonna go to one last thing.
I did get wind from Gary Loftus at the last Transportation Committee meeting that they would like me to be on the agenda next month. He mentioned it in the context of bringing our budget to them, but that's, I think I'll call him and say, hey, that, you know, we're not in our budget process yet, so I can just give them an update to Coast, all things Coast and what's going on, and how we're doing on our current budget.
But he may have a very real reason for wanting our budget to be brought to them. If you look at the discord that's happening between he and others, they may be trying to lock in some budgetary, some contractual stuff early on that they then don't want to go back and revisit.
And I will call him and find out.
Well, he may have
But I-
forgotten that our fiscal year changed.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was leaning towards, but I'll let him know what those, you know, and we'll hammer down what he actually wants me to present.
You have the date for that?
I think it's May 12th, I just looked at it.
Yeah, 11th or 12th, but whatever the Wednesday,
The Wednesday.
yeah, whatever the Wednesday is, it's like at 2 o'clock.
Okay.
I will send out an invite
Please.
on that one, or Lynette will. Sorry, I had too
Oh,
much stuff
check it
done
out.
on that, so
Yeah, we
I
draw.
forgot.
He's trying to take over your job too.
So that
got my
concludes the
job.
general manager's report.
All right.
Hopefully that wasn't too.
Do we have any more
Thank you very
questions
much.
about the general manager's report? All right, approval of, moving on to approval of resolutions.
I think we did that.
We took, bylaws.
Well, you want the,
Bylaws.
yeah, the bylaws, you gotta do the bylaws.
Right.
I have two areas.
Good questions.
So you wanna move and then discuss?
Yeah, I moved that the bylaws be accepted.
Second it.
Discussion,
Discussion.
two areas. I thought
Lights on
the
here.
Citizens Advisory Committee, Brian, I thought you were changing what we called that thing.
We did.
What's that
Well,
Citizens
no, we have
Advisory
the-
Committee in the?
What page are you on?
Yeah.
Page
No, we-
14.
We talked about it, but we
Yeah.
decided not to change it because we didn't bring it back.
It's okay.
Right.
It was an optional thing and it wasn't something
Well,
that
Bill
we.
says there's 15 members and I get to appoint somebody to it. When do I get to do that? Each one of us around this table get to appoint a person.
Well, it says, should a citizens advisory committee become necessary?
Yeah, it's not.
So right now is we're not doing it. So when it becomes necessary,
Then we'll give
then
you
I
an
get
option
the
to
name.
appoint.
Yes.
I'll give you Patty.
You have someone in mind?
Yes, I do.
Then we'll
She's gonna
reactivate.
bake, she's
You're
gonna
gonna
bake some pizza.
You're gonna
today.
do Patty Bloom?
Yeah, okay, good. This should, that's okay.
Yes, it will be
That'd be great.
reactivated
That
at
takes
that
care of
time.
that. The other area is, I still get confused, GSATs and COG. We started using at times interchangeable in there, but one area says it
What page
requires.
are you on?
I'm not sure what that, page 5 probably, paragraph 2, U and W. It says that annually we will update the WRCOG Board of Directors on current routes, services, annual audit, funding applications, and future service plans. How do we, what mechanism do we use to do that?
Or do we do it?
Yeah, we send all of our public involvement stuff and.
We say
anything that
board
we're
minutes
doing.
to them? Because every one of those items we discussed
Yeah,
here.
they are considered a stakeholder, so they get all of the
They get
board
board packages and
materials
stuff like
every
that.
So we
month.
don't do it annually,
And
we
they get
do
the
it
audit.
Monthly.
month.
I don't know
And
about
that's-
the audit.
And they
I
get
have not
minutes.
sent the audit out to stakeholders,
Well,
but
we discussed it at
they
this
do
meeting.
get
That's okay.
all of the board
We're doing it
information.
more frequently than we
Yeah.
have to. I just want to make
Yeah.
sure we were not ignoring that
And they're,
requirement.
both entities, even though it's the same entity,
Mhm.
are in there because GSATs is urban
Okay,
and COG is rural.
good, perfect. We're
And we
doing more than
did-
we need. I want to make sure we were
Yes.
not just ignoring that requirement. Okay.
We did
That's
spell out what GSATs stands
Yeah.
for and COG
Good.
throughout that part.
I'm waiting for the next GSAT meeting to see if there's anybody at Surfside still working there.
I know. They change all the time.
It's just,
Okay.
The room should be available.
I just
the
hope,
room should be available,
I
but
just hope the
Okay.
girl that works there, I think her name
I was
is
pleased to hear
Deborah.
that's good. I was afraid we weren't. That's-
Okay.
We do more than we have to.
we have a motion and a second. Any other questions about the bylaws? All those in favor of adopting the bylaws as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say nay.
Thank you, Katie, for your work on that.
Do we have any other any resolutions?
That's the resolution
No.
to,
That's
it
it.
says bylaws, so it's passed.
Okay.
That was quick.
Old business, I'm gonna just sign this, then,
You said there was 2 items, right? Did we get through on any of them on mine?
Succession plan and business continuity.
Oh, okay.
Was that the only two?
well, Brian and I have had some discussion, and we're all concerned about two things. We're concerned about succession, business continuity, what happens if, you know, the building burns down, what happens if it becomes inaccessible, and a whole lot of other what happens if. And then the second was succession plan. In our discussion, we determined that Brian could appoint someone from the administration to then get a staff of the administration pulled together to basically develop the outline of a business continuity plan. And the board would appoint someone to be responsible for pulling together some board members to be looking at succession planning. And so even though those two things have some general working relationship to one another, I'd like to propose as part of old business that that's how we proceed. That Brian appoint someone, not do it himself, he's got enough on his hands, but appoint someone who would organize from the management side, at least the outline, and perhaps present it to us in 2 months, which gets us to June, of a business continuity plan. Just what are the things we should be thinking about would be what I would be looking for in the outline, not necessarily the answers to those questions.
Yeah, but I think if I could sort of follow on with that, I feel like you ought to appoint a committee of board members that would meet with management.
Yep.
And then we would do a SWOT analysis for all intents and purposes, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Sit in a room and just talk about all the things that maybe could happen, those types of things. And answer as many as we can, although I don't know that we'd be able to answer a lot of them. But get some of that information down on paper on what needs to be addressed as, for business continuity and succession.
Right.
You
want to do them as one team?
I think so. I think we all get in a room and, we can, I would like to attend the meeting.
Yep.
But I think, Ron and Tom and Doug and I would be on our side, and whomever you want to appoint from the board. And let's just start talking about it. We've been dancing around the topic, I know, for as long as I've been here, and then, at the very least, maybe we can kind of figure out a path towards some of those answers. So, I've been thinking about a lot of things, but at least then there'll be some movement, and you all will be front and center on watching the movement.
Okay.
And we'll know what questions we're asking.
Yes, it'd be a whiteboard exercise or however you wanna play it, but,
So I would envision about 4 board members, 4 administration team members to get the conversation going. And if any of you are interested in serving on that planning team, would you let me know in the next week or so? That would be very helpful.
I just think it's important that we do not have a quorum
I
in
agree.
there. So it needs to be those 4, trust those 4 to make the sausage, as it were, so that we're not doing public meetings. This is, that way we can be candid about the conversation, and then, whatever comes out of it, we'd obviously bring to the board as a whole.
Okay, so that would be great. All right, so that's old business. Do we have any new business? Do we have any other old business? Do we have any new business? Do we have any announcements? Could I have a request for adjournment?
I make a motion there to adjourn.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 That was a pretty tired aye. Okay. All those
Thank you all.